Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. How are you doing? This episode was supposed to be one that I recorded in June, and then, as if quod erat demonstratum, the universe is trying to really teach me that the way I've been doing things is wrong. When I listened back to it, I didn't resonate with it at all. It was old, it was stale, it was crusty, it was decaying. And then I couldn't share it with you all, which is fascinating because I started that podcast off by saying, you're not going to hear this till September, but I need to take a moment and put a pin in it right now. And then I've had to pull said pin out and discard it. So there we go. It's always interesting, isn't it? But I just feel like that was the universe saying to me that I really do have to release these as and when they're done and be in that space. As you regular listeners will know, I often have the very human desire to take down old episodes, especially when they no longer resonate with me. And I try really, really hard. I've never taken one down yet to keep them up, even though I've grown past them, because I think this is part of the problem. We don't really talk about the growth or the integration, the unfoldment, and how something can be true at one point and then no longer be true as your awareness and your expansion grows and shifts. So this is where we're at, which is fascinating. And I'm still going to circle back to what I talked about because some of you will be wondering what the heck's been going on. To be fair, I've been wondering what the heck's been going on. So I I've probably told you this, but I've got to tell the story in its entirety so I don't miss any of it. So if you need to doze off, feel free. But I was told when I worked with Lynn Gosney and Bruce Scott, the shamans, that I needed to do things on my own. They gave me a very powerful message, which I'm really dumbing down right now. It blew my socks off. It nearly made my hair stood on end with the energy behind it of there's a hot air balloon. It's beautiful, it's rising, but there's only space in the basket for one person. And no matter how much you want to put other people in it, there is no space for it, which is a very clear, very direct message. Absolutely. But I just seem to fail at that message all the time. It's like I know that that message is true and correct, but I run a different program mentally, which is always about bringing people along with me, always. And I think it's part of my gifts, in honesty, because unlike some of the teachers I've had that have been jealous of mediums that do well in classes and wanted to keep them quiet and still and stuck, I desperately, desperately didn't want to do this on my own. I've never wanted to demonstrate alone. It's, just putting out there to the universe. My dream is a theatre tour, but not on my own with other mediums. That would be my dream. And so it's always been hard for me because I've always ended up having to do it on my own, but really wanting other people to be along there with me. And although that has been hard, that has, I think, impacted in a positive way my teaching because I don't hold anything back. I really, really want my students to succeed. I want them to be as good as I am. I want them to be better than me. And I really honestly want that. And so it has had a positive effect, but the flip side is the negative effect. And so if you've been following me on social media, or indeed if you're one of my deeply beloved students, you'll have been on a bit of a roller coaster with me that looked very changeable, but actually was me completely ignoring, it was changeable, but completely ignoring messages and guidance from myself, from spirit, from the universe, wherever it comes from. So well, where are we now? We're mid-July. And so on the 1st of July, the Mediumship Matters School closed. It closed to new members on the 1st of June. And essentially what happened was Spirit showed me how out of alignment. I know what I said in the previous episode, but you know what I'm getting at. What is the bloody word if we don't use alignment? How out of step with me the school had become. And this is one of those things that I'm talking about when I was talking in the previous episode about how you can really work towards something and you can create something bloody marvelous and then realize that it's no longer a match to you and have to let it go. And it's easy to view that as a failing. It's easy to view that you made a mistake and you got it wrong. But I don't think I did. I just think it had a limited time span. And then that time span ran out, and then I ignored that it had run out, and I kept putting my fingers in my ears and burying my head in the sand and going, it will be okay, positive vibes, it's going to be a success, when there was just no energy, no bounce back from it whatsoever. And I find that it's kind of nuts, but also kind of mind-blowing. And I wanted to share it with you guys because I think this happens more often than we register, that actually something that you can work towards with this huge amount of energy and this huge amount of intention, when it's taught you what it needs to teach you, that energy will just go dissipate, down, gone. And then you'll be there feeling like perhaps you failed, or perhaps you got it wrong, perhaps you shouldn't have been doing that all along. But what if you were supposed to be doing that, but it served its purpose, so now on to new things? And it was a really tough decision. It was a bit like if you imagine carrying a massive boulder around, but the boulder just keeps getting heavier and heavier. In fact, I'll use a good example here. In April, I went backpacking around Italy. Not backpacking. We didn't stay in hostels, but we carried all our stuff on our backs. And it was the funniest thing because when you first picked up your rucksack, as anyone who's done anything like this will attest, it was like, okay, yeah, that's okay, I can do that. And then you'd walk around and it would feel like it would get heavier and heavier and heavier, and it would weigh you down. And then you would stop for a drink or have a sit down and put the rucksack down. And as soon as you put it down, you went to pick it up again, you realised how bloody heavy it was. And you were having a real battle of mind against body, because you didn't have a choice. Everybody had a backpack. We all had to carry our own stuff. So it was kind of like that. I went to Glastonbury. Now, I know that Glastonbury isn't the place for everybody, but for me, there is just something about the energy there. It's a bit like when you go to a retreat and everybody is on a vibe. I feel like Glastonbury has that. There's a lot of people just living their lives in the way that works for them in Glastonbury. There's a lot of people showing off and doing a pretentious wanker spirituality too, but we'll just ignore that for now. We'll talk about the people who are just living their lives, minding their own business, doing their own thing. But the other people who are just living their lives, quite a fascinating energy. And of course, when you go to these places, you do get changed by the energy of it because you're stepping away from reality, your life, the humdrum, the routine, the to-do list. You're going to this amazing place where you're going to work with spirit, where there's lots of very spiritual people. It's like immersing yourself in a different energy for a time. And every time I go to Glastonbury, I come back a different person. And essentially, after I demonstrated, it was a great dem. Touch wood, it always is at Glastonbury, but the last two have been really, really great. Lots of fun. Um, we went. Some of my students who had travelled and we went to the pub for a drink afterwards, and then one of them just said, in passing, "You do know that the only reason we're on the school is for you." And I went, "Oh, yeah, 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 the other teachers though." And then someone else piped up and said, "Oh, you're talking about the school? I don't watch any of the other stuff. I only watch you." And that is no disrespect to the other teachers that are on there, but I started to just think about the energy of it, because the energy of it was my platform, it's my followers, it's me that's advertised it. And then, of course, you've got people coming on, they're drawn to my energy. I'm not saying I'm the only good teacher, and I am not saying that those other teachers were not good. I am just saying if you've been drawn to my energy, you've been drawn to my energy. It's my platform. So that kind of started resonating within me. And then I started in that weird way where we can be so blinkered to messages from the universe, and then all of a sudden we realize we've been getting them for months. All of a sudden, I realized that actually the biggest part of work of the school platform were the teachers. They were not the students. That I was giving away half my money to for extra work, if we're going to boil it absolutely down. And that it was a great opportunity, but that not everybody was realizing that it was a fantastic, phenomenal, great opportunity. And people were acting as if they were doing me a favor, and in their intention were doing me a favor, changing dates, moving this around, recording when the sound quality was rubbish, and not replacing it when students were commenting on it, and just stuff like this. And it wasn't one thing, it was just lots and lots and lots of things. And I suddenly just realized how heavy it was. When I was doing my cooking business and Spirit were trying to encourage me along this path, or an easier path, the only way that they could get through to me was to ask me to take a 2-week break, week-long break from my business. I think it was supposed to be a week, but it ended up being 2, where I wasn't allowed to work on my business. I was allowed to still deliver meals that I'd already made, that were ordered, but I wasn't allowed to do any cooking, any menu design, any planning, anything like that. I had to step away from it. And there was a real knowing in that, because of course, when I went to pick it back up, I realised how heavy it was and I didn't want to do it anymore. And that's kind of what happened with the school. So, from an outsider's point of view, it's kind of nuts, because on the Monday I was promoting the school, and then the following Monday the school had closed and I'd come up with something else instead. But it was also, in that time, I'd lived like 15 lives. And I had realised that I just couldn't carry it around, and it was going to make me resentful, and it was going to make me annoyed. So I wanted to share that with you guys, because I think often we can look at these sort of moments as failings. I set up a school and within a year I'd closed it, but it taught me loads. It got me in front of some amazing students who have been such inspirations to me. I've been really lucky because most of them have stayed. Um, and that is phenomenal. But even more so, when I then launched the Gateway, which is just me teaching with a couple of extra sessions from my lovely friend Sue, all of a sudden, there's a load of new people joining, a load of new interest, and you start to realise that it needed to be fully my energy for my manifestations. And I still, because I cannot, I still want to get masterclasses taught and one-off sessions on both the business course and the Gateway for people. So it's not just me, because I really am very mindful that I can only teach within my limitations of my experience and my knowing and my level of consciousness. And so there are other teachers that will bring different things to the mix, but that will be a one-off. They're paid for it, it's done, easy, simple transaction. And since I closed the Mediumship Matters School, it's continued to be a bit crazy because I've got so much time on my hands now. I keep feeling like I've forgotten something important, and I haven't. It's just because I've been used to working so hard. And that was for the teachers. That wasn't for the students. That was all of the stuff the teachers needed. So it's kind of a revelation within a revelation. I don't know. It's been nuts. And I don't know if this has been the most boring 15 minutes of your life, and I apologise if it has. But how much are we holding on to because of our brains saying, well, that's too soon to get rid of that? And how much are we trying to manifest, keeping with the theme of the moment, success in something that the energy of it is already telling us it's dead? The energy of it is already saying there's no bounce back. It's like throwing a tennis ball that's run out of bounce. It just goes bleh. And if you've got something in your life that has that energy where you're not getting a bounce back, if you can, and I completely understand if you can't because it's hard, but if you can, that's what you should be using to tell yourself that it's not the path, it's not the space anymore. And it really doesn't matter whether you've had it launched and it's been going for a year, whether it's been going for 10 years, or whether it's been going for 5 minutes. If there's no bounce back, it's given you what you need. You've learned what you needed to learn. And so now you have to open up your awareness and hold a stinky space. Doesn't have to be stinky, but I don't like holding space of not knowing where you're going next. And I am very much in that space. So I moved the school to the Gateway, and most of the students came with me. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Really, really excited about it. New energy. It's just got something. It feels like it should. It feels like it's got bounce again. But then in other places, it's almost like shutters are coming down. So as I mentioned, retreat I've just done didn't make a profit, and actually the venue was not up to scratch. So I wouldn't be going back there even if I did make a profit. And then there is me trying to demonstrate, as I was saying to you guys last time, and there's no bounce back from that. I'm struggling to sell tickets. It's not really happening the way that it should. I'm feeling like it's harder than it needs to be, which, yeah, we could say is being out of alignment, but I'm going to say it's just a sign because the universe is, say it with me, always working in my favor. There is some reason, but I'm having to hold that space. And it's uncomfortable of knowing that it will all make sense. And it could be next week that I'm recording a podcast for you guys and going, oh my God, you'll never believe it. It could be another year before I realise what it's all been about. But Spirit was showing it to me the other day, like a Buddleia, because we've got some Buddleias in our gardens, and one of them's really woody. So I've just had to hack it right back now it's finished blooming. And that Buddleia it's having an existential crisis right now. It doesn't know if it's going to live or die. I've cut off all its limbs, and it's taking a minute to just go, ah. I mean, thank God we can't hear plants scream. It's just going, ah, because I've cut it all off. But I also know that will give newer, fresher, better growth. We've got to get rid of the dead wood. And Spirit was saying that this is exactly what is going on with me. I've got to get rid of the dead wood. And as I was saying to you guys, a lot of that wood I've created. It was one thing when I started this healing journey. And I was bleating on about experiences that I had in 1994 and how they shaped me into being the human being that I am. And I had to learn to forgive myself for choices that I made. I actually think that bit of healing, that stage of healing, is kind of easier because at least you can go, well, I didn't know what I know now, and this, that, and the other. When you're trying to heal from a choice you made 3 minutes ago, it's really hard. You're like, what? So there's just this constant cyclical moving that I'm in now of creating, cutting back, seeing what sticks, evolving from it, learning from it, integrating it, thinking this time it will make sense, creating, realizing it doesn't work, cutting back, letting things go, being brave, shifting it all, and then moving again into learning, integration, understanding, and expansion. And I think I could be kidding myself, and I'm fully aware of that. But I think that is the journey. It's supposed to be like this. It's not that I've got it wrong. It's not that I've made mistakes, although of course I have. But this is actually why we're here. Because when you're in spirit, it's always good. We need to learn to release and let go. We need to learn to trust that better things are coming, even when it's a shitstorm and everybody's upset with you. I felt like, I don't know, Cruella de Vil, and my teachers were Dalmatians. I felt like I was just being the most horrible, selfish person, but I also knew it had to be done. It had to be. It wasn't going to grow. It was just going to rot. It was like cutting out decay. I couldn't yeah, I couldn't keep going with it, and I had to be the one to be brave and get rid of it. But I also felt like the bad guy because I guess, to the Buddleia, I have been the bad guy. I have hacked it, hacked it back, and that is for its own good, just like all of this is for my own good. But it was really funny when I was listening to the first time I went through all of this 2 months ago, because I'm talking all the way through it about whether I'm in alignment or not and trying to work out what alignment is. And obviously, in opening up to the question of what is alignment, it has been all of the stuff that spirit, the universe, which is always working in my favor, brought to me that I talked to you about in the previous episode. So it's all serving a purpose. But it doesn't mean that it's comfortable, because growth isn't comfortable. So that's kind of the story of, I mean, in the months since I stopped season 5, it has just been epic, epic growth. And I don't know what it's all for. And at the moment, I feel like a compass that can't find north. And some days I cope with it very well, and some days I feel like I'm being punished because this is not comfortable for me. I like to know where I'm heading. I like to have plans. I like to feel like there is growth happening. And that is when I would call it alignment, but it isn't really. It's just the energy I like being in. It's just because all of it is aligned. This bit of release is aligned, and working through it and understanding it. And this is the journey, this is the job, this is what we all sign up for. I wasn't going to talk to you about this, but I started and it just kept on coming out of me. So there we are done. I've got more episodes up my sleeve. This is the weird thing. I've been holding on to them all, waiting for September to record them. It's nuts. I don't know what I was thinking. When you step away from the energy and look at it, you can see it completely differently. And if you can't see the wood for the trees, it might be that you're like me at the moment and not supposed to, but it also might be that you need just a complete change of scene, of people, move yourself into another space, and then it will all suddenly drop in and make sense to you. As always, I would really appreciate your thoughts. Please let me know if this is resonating or if I'm just waffling into the abyss. You know that fact that every sound carries on forever? It resonates through the universe forever and ever and ever. It just moves out of your area. It just keeps on going. I'm not always sure that I'm putting the best quality. There's a lot of swear words that go out into the universe from me. I wonder what everyone resonates with that. Imagine that there's some little sad aliens somewhere that just get hit with everything we say. Oh, just wishing we'd be quiet for a moment. Sorry, guys, not going to happen. So there we are. Please, as always, follow this poddy. Leave me a review if you've got a minute. I know these things are deathly dull, but they really, really help me. And I will see you all again very, very soon. Thank you so much for listening.